so as far as the protocol goes, I know it's uplift, energy, calm, and rest, and it's a protocol. It's not an actual product that you're bringing to market as in the traditional sense. So how are you pairing the protocol with products? Is it scientifically backed data, as in like terpene profiles as well as different strains that you're going to, let's say, a cultivator and like pairing the uplift with a certain strain, or how is that synergy being created between the protocol and the products?
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Cannabis exclusive and an interesting podcast here today. As this industry grows and you're new to the industry, what products do you seek? Where do you go? What are even questions that you ask? It can be overwhelming. We talk a lot about bud tenders, but it goes beyond that. And that's the conversation we want to tackle today as we welcome in CEO and founder of a company called Discover Your Color, Livi McKay. Good to see you. How are things?
Things are going great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, I know you got quite the following, and I know you and Anthony were able to connect on Twitter, but interesting topic to say the least, because as I said off the top, connoisseurs, like when it comes to product like Anthony, who's been around a long time, well educated within the space. But when we look at the industry as a whole, it starts to grow, and you start to see people that say we're in alcohol starting to trend away, consumer trends into cannabis. Like, what are questions that you ask when you don't even know what questions to ask? But this is where your platform basically wants to cover off. So before we get into that, how did the whole idea come to fruition to begin with?
It really came, like so many people in the industry, from a personal experience.
Okay.
And that was my personal experience using cannabis for health-related reasons. And I used cannabis to treat 3 different physiological conditions. And in doing so, that led me down the rabbit hole of understanding how I was able to replace almost a dozen pharmaceuticals, including opioids, with cannabis.
Wow.
And so I really wanted to understand the science behind it, even though I'm not a scientist, my background's in finance, but still when you're a patient, you kind of become a de facto expert, at least in your own, in your own health, or else you're basically outsourcing that to others. And that didn't work for me. I really wanted to take control of my health. So cannabis and understanding not just that, but also plants in general, and where that fits in with our healthcare, because it kind of seems to have fallen out. But I think we, because of the science in cannabis, we're able to actually understand even better the understanding of how health and plants work together. So we basically took a deep dive into the science, into how especially the cannabinoids interact with the endocannabinoid system. That's where we started. And I left the finance world back in 2020 to exclusively do nothing but study the science aspect, but also the consumer aspect, because I had just from my own personal experience, but also from millions of other people, because there are 55 million consumers, about 35 million on a monthly basis, according to the latest CDC numbers.
Wow.
So majority of them are doing so for what we call minor health indications, for better sleep, better pain, pain relief, or stress, or something of that nature. So they're doing so for health related reasons. But then there are, quite frankly, millions of people that I found out that have a similar story to me, and it's been happening over decades. And so it led me down this rabbit hole of basically trying to understand how this plant works, how it works with the body, and how it can essentially be the linchpin to changing how we look at healthcare. And so that's what the stake in the ground, if you will, is. I do say that cannabis is a wellness industry. It doesn't mean it's a healthcare industry, just meaning that the pharmacology, how it interacts with the body, it's not seen as a toxin like alcohol or cigarettes, for example, but it's actually broken down naturally because we produce our endocannabinoids, anandamide and A2A and some other ones, but those are the 2 main ones. And so what this did was it also led me to understand that, yes, there's a variety of effects that happen, because there's a variety in the in the plant variety, in the cultivars and so forth. And so again, just kind of chasing down the rabbit hole of trying to answer my own question of how and why, it led me to also seeing a massive gap in the industry, if you will, of if not truly seeing why consumers use cannabis it's quite different from alcohol in the sense of just how, and also tobacco, and how the effect is. So if the effect is different, the reason for doing so, the reason for use, the motivation, the incentive for use is going to be different. And so I found that that really was not being relayed to consumers very well. So I felt that that was also something that was keeping the industry from having the validity that I think it should, because it's considered still by anyone outside the industry as a stoner, the next vice, the next kind of thing as the industry goes. But yet when you think about people that, again, use the plant, almost everyone knows someone or has a story that they know someone that's benefited from it. So there's a major disconnect there. And we're really seeking to essentially, overused phrase, but bridge that gap of that disconnect of the consumer experience, what they genuinely experience, and then how the plant is related, how it's, and so essentially what we've done is the categorization of the plant objectively with scientific basis to just start there. Let's start objectively classifying it correctly. Go away with the indica sativa hybrid. It was good when we didn't have testing, but now it's obsolete because it's just run amok. And so we're introducing a new system that is objective, backed by decades of research, specifically 8 years of research in this, but over 3 decades of consumer patient research and statistical analysis and observations, and the best kind of data that we can get with the restricted environment that we had. And so that's what we're trying to bring to the table again to help bridge this gap.
Yeah. So as far as the protocol goes, I know it's uplift, energy, calm, and rest. And it's a protocol. It's not an actual product that you're bringing to market as in the traditional sense. So how are you pairing the protocol with products? Is it scientifically backed data as in like terpene profiles as well as different strains that you're going to, let's say, a cultivator and like pairing the uplift with a certain strain, or how is that synergy being created between the protocol and the products?
And so we can essentially match the protocol to the COA, the certificate of analysis, that has the full panel terpene. Yes, we do need terpene profiles and cannabinoid profiles. And once we have that data, then we're able to essentially group it into these 4 categories, because again, through the research that we've done, we're able to know which ones matter more in terms of variating the effect, and which ones are a little bit more in the back end. And so we were able to reduce that down. And how this does work, it is a platform. We have a web app where right now brands and retailers, they can come on, and growers, they can come on the platform and they can essentially upload their COAs. And then what happens is those COAs get color tagged, right? And then they have a report of those COAs as they're color tagged. And this is a way for brands to be able to pick out strains to make sure that it matches the vibe or the effect that they're purporting or that they're trying to, actually, because we have that, again, backed with the data. So the effects that you named off, the uplift, energize, calm, and rest, those are the top reported effects for each of those categories. And what's very important to understand, though, is that this will work for roughly 2/3 of those that try it. They will experience that effect. For the other third, they're likely to experience something else, maybe even the opposite. So that's why the service is named Discover Your Color, because if you fall into that 1/3 category, you still can go by objectivity, you just might have to find a different color. You might be a yellow, goes to, rest is in yellow. But once you find that color that correlates with the effect you're looking for, you're done. No more searching from a consumer perspective. So now brands and dispensaries can match their strains and their marketing up with scientifically backed categorizations to be most likely to offer this effect, but also be able to offer something else like a color to help consumers be able to rely on that consistency that currently isn't found, especially with flower products.
Okay, let's walk through then. Step 1, how do I get started? Like if I'm interested and want to explore something like this, where would it all begin?
So you go to the MyTEPI website. So that's actually the company, the service is Discover Your Color. So the mytepi.com, you're able to go click I want access. And then from there, you'll get a contact for, they'll send us an email. It's a lot manual. We're still working very, very rapidly to get this more automated. We just launched our MVP. We should have the version 2 out actually by the end of this month. But as of right now, you click on this, we send you a contact form, which basically just gives it your name, your operating license number, and the store that you're looking for. And then you're able to get your login information, and that gets you into our web app. And then once you're in our web app, you're able to upload single or bulk COAs, and then that generates the report. Right now it generates just the report of the color tags, but what's coming is a basic analysis that will show you how much of your inventory is skewed towards one color or another, because what we found in our pilot is that many dispensaries are overstocking in one color that doesn't actually translate to being a customer favorite. And so what we found is that
that's interesting.
A lot of it has to do with the over crossbreeding and and the genetic destruction that's happened by just trying to the land race, if you will, to turn out as much product as possible, because we haven't had a network yet that truly was able to connect all the tiny growers to be able to take care of the volume problem, because it's been a slow kind of rollout, and plus they're also very hesitant to get on a lot of platforms at this point, especially the small guys in some places like California. They're hard to get into communities, if you will, and that's where
But are we on the verge? Like, is this the next step in the overall emergence of the industry based on the level of sophistication, just understanding everybody's wants, needs, consumer trends, data that's being collected at any given time?
I do think that we're on that verge, because what we see in the mature markets that are also extremely well regulated, like Nevada. Nevada is a really good test case because you've got a lot of dispensaries, but they're also very heavily regulated, and the testing regulations are very strict. So we were able to collect a lot of data from Nevada. Spent a year and a half there, actually on the ground in Las Vegas. Yes, we did that to really understand it.
That must have been fun.
So
I'm sure.
What we understood was that there is a very evident consumer evolution process that happens once a state goes through the legalization, usually starting with a med program, then to rec, and we should say from the legacy illicit market to the med to the rec, right? So, and there's an actual progression that happens with the consumer as well, and it's not that every consumer wants to be educated. So this is another major point that I want to drive home, is that we have an industry kind of mantra of educate the consumer, educate the consumer, educate the consumer. And we came in and said, well, let's first serve the consumer. Let's serve the consumer. And if they want to be educated, we can provide that education. But that requires effort on behalf of the consumer. And if a consumer doesn't want to be educated, that should not preclude them from finding the product that works best for them. It should still be incumbent. How we took upon it is we said, we'll take on the responsibility of helping direct them to the products that they're looking for, that are reflected in the reasons of what they're searching out products to have, that also backs up with the science of how these effects essentially will come about.
How are those consumers finding the products at the point of sale? Is it more so is it kind of like Weed Maps, where like I'll be on the app, I'll see a dispensary and it'll have their products indexed as like, well, this is a green, this is a blue, this is a yellow, because I'm assuming it's not like it winding up on the packaging at the point of sale from the actual dispensary.
Correct. So in our pilot program, we had our Dr. John Talleyrand physically going out and putting up stickers to denote the colors. And what happened when the consumers came in and they saw the stickers just on the placards of for the products, essentially. So very non-invasive, not messing with branding, not anything like that. But the consumers still noticed the color. They noticed that little sticker, and they said, what is that? And then immediately, once the bud tenders were able to very easily explain, this is just the different categories, the effects range from sedating to energizing, discover, find the color that works best for you. That very easy sales pitch, right? Here are the top reported effects. Then the consumers immediately started to buy by their color. And then they started to come back to that dispensary because they could rely on that dispensary. So they saw the customer attrition drop, and then they saw their revenue increase about 12.5% over 6 months because they rearranged their inventory and started to basically stock their inventory more according to what the consumers were demanding and what they were seeking, because they were finding that yes, they didn't want this one color that generally just means sedation. That's what that's what the 75% is in that. And the reason for that has to do with curing time. It's much faster to when you basically cure that the indica or the sedating type of chemotype. Yeah. It's a much shorter curing process. What is traditionally known with the more energizing, what we put in the yellows and the greens, that takes longer time generally to procure. So that's another reason why they're a bit skewed.
Is this throughout the entire portfolio of like products? Like, are we talking like gummies, flour, vapes, concentrates, or is it right now it's applicable to like flour? That you would see in like the corresponding vapes for that strain that would be distilled down?
Yes. So right now we have it mostly geared towards flour because that's actually the most complex. And so we wanted to get that nailed down, and then we'll be able to expand to actually the full spectrum of flour. Full spectrum of products. Yes.
Well, best of luck to you. I think this is a fascinating story, to say the least. I do want to ask, like, you talked a little bit about your journey and your story, and I think like you've been open about that. I think online a little bit about it, but I guess maybe share, some of the triumphs that you've had and just some of the people that have like reached out that can relate to a lot of the stuff that you're doing to really come up with this whole idea.
Sure. Yes, I am pretty open about it because it's a part of it. It's if you can detect my accent, I'm from the South. I'm from Alabama. And so I grew up in a place where, cannabis is still, yes, we've got medical, but mostly it's still not very much accepted. So in 2011, I was in an F5 tornado and I lost my apartment, my car, and about 3 weeks later, I started having grand mal seizures. And so, and they started to increase with severity and frequency, and the prescription drugs were not working. And no one in this time, even using it for seizures, this was before Charlotte Figge, this was before, or at least we didn't know about it. This was like I said, back in 2011, still very fringe, if you will. And so, but I did have no other choice in that sense, like I said, because I started losing my jobs and everything because I started having seizures at the job. And so kind of desperate, turned to cannabis, and then started using it and went seizure free for 4 years. And they did not come back until I started having another bout of health issues, which led to 17 hospitalizations in 15 months with 6 major operations and the removal of almost all non-vital organs except my spleen. Stop my spleen.
Wow.
And yes. So, and that also includes 2-month-long hospitalizations. And so not a fun ride whatsoever. And basically being told, and this is all while I'm trying to make a career in banking and finance. I started out very traditional, like part-time teller, then to a banker, then to a private banker advisor at Morgan Stanley. And then this started happening. So they said at 26, I was an invalid. I was declared basically just, you're going to be on the couch. I was prescribed 90 Percocets a month, 10 milligrams. So 3 10 milligrams a day, benzodiazepines in the morning, benzodiazepines at night. So, I mean, essentially zombified and just kind of put out to pasture at 26. And it was it was at the 17th hospitalization that I just had enough. I said that I'm not going to wither and die. There's got to be a different way. And since I'd used cannabis before and had such I was a big believer in it at that point.
Yeah.
And so I got out of the hospital and I got myself a whiteboard. I had been on IV Dilaudid every 3 hours, 3 milligrams every 3 hours. So basically large hits of heroin every 3 hours for a month. So I get out of the hospital and I pull out a whiteboard and I get myself an ounce of cannabis. And I said, I'm getting off of this. And so I wrote out times and basically put myself in withdrawals but weaned myself off of it and got off of the hardest hitting opiates in 10 days. And that was using cannabis
in 10 days.
In 10 days. It was not recommended by any of my doctors, but I was just so
driven.
Yes, I was done. And so I came back to finance with a vengeance. I met John McAfee, if y'all remember. Good old Madman McAfee.
I remember it. Yeah.
He recruited me to be his head of IR and corporate communications when he was trying to bring back a cybersecurity product called Sentinel at the time. Yeah. And so that was my entry back into finance. I actually, I've been an equestrian since I was 7. That's my sport of choice. And so I came back to equestrian sport, was actually ranked 5th in the country in 2019, and went more traditional Wall Street after the McAfee days, and went and sold institutional research with Larry McDonald and the Bear Traps Report, and then ran IR for CB1 Capital with Todd Harrison. So, and that was my last stint actually with finance, and that was my introduction into the science part, because CB1 is very heavily interested in the scientific aspects of the plant and the wellness sides of it. And so after I got just all of that exposure, and I did, and then I also did a podcast with Tulsi Gabbard that also kind of, you could say it lit a fire under me, but I just wanted to do more in the industry. I wanted to solve a problem.
It's a great thing about this space. Yeah, the people you meet and what it brings. But anyway, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're so fine. You're fine. But that was it, was that I just wanted to, it had been so life-changing for me. And I'd seen that it had been so life-changing for other people, and saw that there was a real opportunity to help validate this industry as something that I think that it is more than it is, and more than it currently is, and more, and what it could be. And so, the dream, if you will, is to help actualize that, to help foster the industry into being what it could be, versus just kind of being a victim of its own fate, because it thinks it doesn't have its own power. But you have 55 million consumers, 35 million on a monthly basis, and that's growing. And that's something, and with all the different applications that we have, not just smoking, but all the different types of uses, I do firmly believe this can be a household staple if we frame this the correct way. And this could be a
5 million
monstrous industry. Sorry?
There's 55 million cannabis consumers in the US. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. What is their tobacco smokers in the US now? Isn't it down to like 10?
It's not that many. Nowhere near that many.
It's not that. And it's declining. And again, this is in a broader trend of health and wellness. And you look at again, in the past decades, it was not cool to be healthy. It was not cool to be, that was considered not fun or cool. Now that's considered very fun and very cool to do that. You talk to anyone in Gen Z about like reading labels on food, they're all about it. They're all about.
And what they are all about is no hangover. Having something that's a socially acceptable substance that's a replacement for alcohol, and there's no hangover, which is the best. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I got to ask, Alabama or Auburn?
Roll Tide, baby.
Okay.
Roll Tide.
Good. Because I'm a big Saban fan. I like Saban, so I respect Alabama.
Livi, I'm a Michigan fan. Tough game under your day.
It was so tough.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that quarterback sneak. That was the wrong call. I don't know.
Well, I'm an FSU. I'm an FSU guy. So Bama literally took our spot for winning the
I know that
the SEC.
There's always the debacle. There's always the debacle about Alabama but we are the dynasty.
Well,
so
You guys will be back with him being gone. Michigan, we had one championship, and you can see what's happening. It's a mass exodus now to the NFL.
Yeah.
And we'll be back to mediocre players again. It's too bad. But listen, this is a fascinating update. But most importantly, like where do you want to take this company? Like where do you see yourself fitting within this industry, let's say in 3 years?
What we're building is an actual network that is going to connect essentially everyone in the industry, because through this language, through this protocol that is colors, and it does start there because it's going to help. We have a catchphrase, but it's not just marketing. It's genuine, from cultivator to consumer. By introducing this protocol and also giving a pipeline online to allow this communication, to allow people to talk to each other, to allow brands, growers, and dispensaries to connect to one another, and then eventually consumers, bringing that in through interoperability, but also building out our own pipelines, our own place for people to come in and meet. I think that we can start to bring a cohesion to the industry that currently has been unable to do. And I don't think that we need interstate commerce to start that. I don't think that we need the federal legalization to happen yet. I think that we can do that now with the power that we have now. And again, getting some of that, that cohesion, kind of fighting back against this imposed fragmentation. Yeah. And so we're trying to build, if you will, that online network that will be meaningful, that will be immediately a value add. That's what we found from we're actually onboarding people daily, and brands are already very excited about, they say, oh my gosh, I don't have to fly out anymore, especially when they're trying to really pick and care. They're like, I don't have to fly out anymore and smell the flower. I can, or guess when I'm looking at a COA. You have the research, you have the science. This makes my life so much easier. So if we can do that for the brands, and we can do that for the dispensaries, and ultimately do that for the consumers, I think that this again validates the industry in such a way that it can be a sovereign industry. And yes, we're going to have outside players. We're going to have big people come in. I'm not fighting that, but I do think it can be a standalone industry that has its own unique personality, its own unique profile, and its own unique use case that isn't like anything we've seen yet. And so that's what gets me excited is building that, bringing people together. I know I'm a bit of a spitfire on Twitter, but it's usually always with the intent of trying to find the truth, trying to find actually that common ground and say, hey, I don't know everything. That's why I say I'm just trying to figure it out like everyone else. But it is trying to find that common ground so that we can stop the infighting, because we'll be so much stronger if we stop the infighting. But we want to build more solutions rather than just saying it. So that's what in 3 years, I hope that we have provided a sustainable solution that actually helps set an industry standard that isn't an oppressive one, that actually uplifts everyone in the industry, that if everyone adopts and everyone buys into, that they'll see, oh my gosh, I'm being able to actually compete against the illicit market. I'm able to offer more value add to my buyers, to my dispensaries, to my consumers. I'm able to explain it without having to go into, a PhD science lesson about cannabis. I'm able to do this simply with this very simple language. And that's where I'm hoping that will be. That's what we're working on.
What do you think, Anthony? I know you follow the space closely.
I'm going to follow closely. I mean, I'm a fan. I think we need more consumer education, and we need to simplify the process.
Yeah.
Because going, especially into an adult use dispensary, it's deer in headlights. It's fancy packaging. It's products everywhere. No one knows what's going on. And the only person that can influence you is the bud tender. It'd be better if you could have the power in your hand to actually understand and comprehend what you're buying before you buy it without being influenced. And being able to streamline that process. So, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm a fan of the product. And I think it's definitely solving a niche, solving a need in the market that is not been solved yet.
When you look at the automotive industry, how many people come into a showroom now and just want to browse and look at a car? They already know exactly what they want, what features included before they even step in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm neurotic. When I go shopping, I've already figured out what I'm buying before I walk in the store. I mean, I've already researched it online. I know what I'm getting. I'm in and out. Whether it's a car, whether it's a pair of pants or cannabis.
So what I see now, are like platforms where, yes, dispensary locations, product availability, buying in real time, but it's just basically without the brand recognition and understanding what they are, that's what's missing right now. Correct, Livy?
Yes. And I think that this also gives an opportunity for brands to really differentiate themselves, and to really stand out. Because to your point, Anthony, I'm actually just like you when it comes to shopping. I know exactly what I want. I'm in and out. I do not like to browse. And so we did create this product with that shopper in mind, as well as the new person, because this also came from the pain point of an educated consumer who I'm looking for very specific. I do look at chemotypes, and I'm looking for specific chemotypes. And it changes from harvest to harvest because the terpenes are very volatile. It's very difficult to do that, to basically keep that consistency, even if you're a master grower. It's a difficult thing to achieve. And so one of the biggest frustrations is I would find a flower product that I really liked, and then 3 months later a new harvest would come in and that product's chemotype would change completely. Same brand, same consumer, same cultivator, same dispensary, but completely different user experience. And so then I would be frustrated because then I'd have to go through again this whole process of sorting through sometimes 30, 40, 50 different flower products, trying to find my very specific chemotype so that it can deliver the specific effect. And so that's why, again, even from an educated consumer standpoint, it's like, all right, if I know I like purple, I just got to go in and find the purples. I don't have to go through and sort through all of these issues.
So technically a strain can vary in color depending on the COA that gets input into the system. So I can go in and buy, let's say, a Mac 1 time that's a yellow. And if there's been some augmentation in the yield and in the growing process, and that COA can get inserted and say, well, this time it's blue.
Correct.
Got it. That's great too, because I completely agree with you. I've consumed certain strains that will inhibit certain effects one time, and then it's completely different the next time, and it's no fault of the brand, it's no fault of the dispensary. It just happens to be the plant that they produced. Okay, that's interesting.
Meaning what? That's a plant produced in Florida, say a plant producing in, say, California?
No, I mean you can grow the same strain in the same room, and I mean you can get variations in the terpene profile and variations in the THC content. It's not like, hey, this grows like this here, let's grow it once, and it's going to do the exact same thing every single time. That doesn't necessarily happen every time. And
that's the difference between the cannabis and alcohol industry, correct?
Exactly, because you're dealing with a live product, like with a live plant here. And so the terpenes, so we can cultivate for cannabinoids with relative consistency, because the terpene molecules, they're physically bigger, so more stable. And I'm not a cultivator, so sorry, cultivators, if I'm butchering this, but this is my best understanding. And that the terpenes are smaller molecules. And so especially when you're looking at sequestered terpenes and monoterpenes, so there's even a differentiation in a molecular structure of the terpenes. And so even if you are a master grower, you can still have a variation from harvest to harvest using the same soil, the same growing techniques, the same grow room, and you know what you're doing, and it still varies. And again, just like Anthony said, it's no fault of the grower. It varies from color to color. And so this is a way, and that's a huge pain point for dispensary buyers, because they'll find a grower, right, that they'll like. And then they'll go back, and then we've actually found this with our pilots. So they found a grower that they liked the color. And so they would say, hey, put aside of your next yield, 1.5 pounds for us. And then by his next yield, the color changed. So then he was frustrated because he was like, I need to see real colors in real time, because it can change, and it does change so often, because yes, like I said, the terpenes are very, very difficult to cultivate with consistency.
Yeah. Welcome to 2024, right?
Yeah. It's nice to talk. It's nice to talk the science of the plant for once.
Yeah.
Instead of just the capital market angles.
It is interesting. Listen, we've had a lot of conversation. Love having you on. Love having conversations. But for all of our viewers out there, we've met Livi a number of times at some of the conferences at Benzinga, but always a wealth of knowledge from a business standpoint. But it's great to see you doing what you're doing. And most importantly, loving what you're doing based on a lot of your life experiences. There's no better entrepreneur and idea when you can actually speak on experience, right?
That's what they say. This was
right.
It's what they say, and it's truly. I have to admit, we have our team went from just the two of us, me and my husband, to 4, and now we're a team of 18. That's including our advisors. So we've grown very, very fast. And I do want to mention that is actually all with everyone jumping in for equity. This has not been on a capital raise. This has been on sheer gusto and enthusiasm and excitement about what we're building. And our team is working around the clock getting this out awesome. to them as quickly as to our users as quickly as possible. Like I said, we're onboarding them daily and we're speaking to them daily, fixing the pain points. So we're really crafting this app and this software and this technology to make sure that it solves pain points, no fluff, nothing. We're all about the functionality. When people, that's my part of just who I am. I'm blunt. I like to go straight to the point and try to be as effective as possible. And so that's what we're trying to bring to it with I want to say these 3 pillars that we have. And this has been from the very beginning. We say that we respect the plant, we care for the people, we validate the industry. Right. And so that's the 3, that's the ethos of the company and everyone that's involved. We're all doing it from a from a heart perspective, but also from a business perspective, that we know this is a real opportunity and we know this is a real need. And so there's nothing better than solving real problems, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So I love it. And thank you guys again for letting me come in and talk about it. Because I could talk about it for eons and all day, because it's just what I love.
Care for the plant, respect the people, and validate the industry. That's the 3 pillars.
Hold on. So care for the people, respect the plant, validate the industry.
It's awesome. CEO, founder of Discover Your Color, Livi McKay. Appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Hey everyone, so what'd you think of the video? Leave your comments below and let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. As usual, subscribe to our channel by clicking on the link here. If you want to see more videos like this, then click on the link here and click on that bell for all notifications. Because most importantly, we want to know your feedback, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.